In March of 2011, as Libya tore itself apart, a small team of British Special Forces soldiers and a secret intelligence service officer flew by helicopter into the desert outside Benghazi to make quiet contact with the rebels fighting Colonel Gaddafi. It went wrong fast. The very rebels they had come to help captured them, searched their bags, and found weapons, radios, maps, and several different passports under different names. Britain's finest had been detained by the people they came to save, and the government in London could barely bring itself to admit the men were theirs. That embarrassment in the Libyan desert pulled back the curtain on a world the British state works very hard to keep hidden. That world has a name: Squadron. It is the unit that does not appear on the recruiting posters, does not march in the parades, and does not work for the army at all. It works for the spies, and while every military enthusiast on Earth knows the Special Air Service, the SAS, far fewer know that there is a squadron sitting above even them in secrecy, a squadron that answers to MI6. Man for man, it may be the most deniable special operations unit in the Western world, and it makes Delta Force look positively public by comparison. If the units that live in the deepest shadow are what you came here for, subscribe and stay with me, because this channel specializes in the men no government wants to talk about. Keep that captured team in the Libyan desert in your mind. We come back to exactly what happened to them, because it is the clearest glimpse anyone has ever gotten of this hidden world. Start with what we actually know and be careful, because this is a subject where the honest answer is often that the record is thin. The clearest public account of Squadron came in January of 2012, when Mark Urban, a respected defense journalist at the BBC and a former army officer himself, reported its existence. According to Urban, Squadron is a composite unit, not a standing regiment of its own. It is built from hand-picked individuals pulled out of the Special Air Service, the Special Boat Service, and the Special Reconnaissance Regiment, the cream of British Special Forces, and placed at the disposal of the Director of Special Forces in the Secret Intelligence Service, the agency the world knows as MI6. Each of those three regiments brings something different to the pool. The Special Air Service brings the land warfare and direct action pedigree the whole world copied. The Special Boat Service brings the maritime and amphibious specialists, the men who arrive from the sea. And the Special Reconnaissance Regiment brings the watchers, the surveillance experts trained to follow a target through a foreign city for days, without ever being spotted. Take the sharpest individuals from all three, strip them of their uniforms and their regimental identity, and you have a tool the intelligence service can point at any problem in the world. That is Squadron, a unit assembled from the best parts of three other units and owned by none of them. That structure alone is what makes it stranger and more secret than Delta Force. Look at the very name. The Special Air Service has its Sabre squadrons, lettered ABD, and GE Squadron sits outside that list, a separate letter for a separate purpose, because it is not really in SAS Squadron at all. It is a pool of the best operators the country has, seconded to the intelligence service for jobs the regular military is never meant to be seen doing. Delta Force, for all its secrecy, is a unit of the United States Army. Squadron belongs to the spies. The lineage goes back further than the name. For decades, British intelligence kept a quiet arrangement with special forces known as the Increment, a standing pool of SAS and Special Boat Service men made available to MI6 for the operations too sensitive for ordinary soldiers. We know about the Increment mostly from one extraordinary source, a former MI6 officer named Richard Tomlinson, who described it in his book The Big Breach after he fell out with the service. He wrote of a detachment of Special Forces soldiers held ready for the intelligence world's dirtiest and most delicate tasks. Squadron is widely reported to be the modern formalized descendant of that arrangement, the Increment given a proper name and a permanent home. During the Cold War, the Increment was the hand the British government reached for when it needed something done quietly and off the books. The men reportedly held ready to slip across a border, to pull an agent out of trouble, to do the work that could never carry a British fingerprint. Tomlinson's account scandalized the service, precisely because it dragged that arrangement into daylight. For an organization whose entire value rested on no one knowing the detachment existed, a former officer writing it all down in a published book was close to a catastrophe, and yet the arrangement survived, because the need behind it never went away. Governments will always want a way to act in the world that they can later deny, and Squadron is the polished, modern answer to that permanent want. Now sit with why working for the spies makes a soldier so much harder to see than working for the army. When Delta Force runs an operation, it is still, at the end of the day, a military mission. There is a uniform chain of command, a defense department that owns it, and a body of military law that governs it, even when every detail is classified. When Squadron runs an operation, it is an intelligence operation. It is designed from the first moment to be deniable, to be the kind of thing a government can look a journalist in the eye and refuse to confirm. The oversight is thinner, the acknowledgement is non-existent, and the entire point of the unit is that the British state can act in a foreign country and swear truthfully on paper that its military was never there. The army has to answer for what it does. The spies are built to never have to. In Britain, that difference is written into the machinery of government itself. The armed forces answer to the Ministry of Defense, and through it, to Parliament, which can summon ministers and demand to know what soldiers have done in the nation's name. The Secret Intelligence Service answers instead to the Foreign Secretary and to a small, carefully cleared body called the Intelligence and Security Committee behind closed doors in sessions the public never sees. So when an operator moves from his regiment into E Squadron, he does not merely change his bosses. He steps out of the bright, accountable world of the military and into the dim, sealed world of the intelligence state, where the questions are quieter and the answers rarer. If you have followed me this deep into the part of the special operations world that barely admits it exists, you are exactly the kind of viewer this channel was built for, and the cadet membership is made for you. Cadets get every video a full day before the public, a badge beside their name in the comments so I know which of you are the serious ones, and a shout out from me by name every month. If a unit that the government will not even name is your idea of a good hour, you are already one of us. Tap join and come a step closer to the dark. Now go back to Libya, because the Benghazi affair is the closest the public has ever come to watching this world operate. In March of 2011, with Gaddafi's forces and the rebels locked in a desperate fight, Britain wanted contact with the opposition leadership. The reported method was pure deniable special operations. A team was carried in, by some accounts off the Royal Navy warship HMS York, by others on a Royal Air Force Chinook flown in from Malta, and inserted into the countryside near Benghazi under cover of darkness. The mission was to quietly link a British intelligence officer with the rebel council. Instead, jumpy local fighters who had no idea who these armed foreigners were grabbed the entire team and locked them up. What the rebels found in their kit told the whole story. Several passports in different names, weapons, communications gear, the unmistakable signature of men who travel undercover. The British government, caught flat-footed, went through agonizing contortions to describe what had happened, calling it a diplomatic mission gone slightly wrong, while the press had a field day with the image of the country's most elite operators being marched around by the very rebels they came to court. After a tense few days, the team was released. The misunderstanding smoothed over, and the British officer eventually did meet the rebel leader, Mustafa Abdul Jalil. Be precise here, because precision is the whole game with this subject. It has never been cleanly confirmed that the Benghazi team carried the specific label E Squadron. What is not in doubt is that this was exactly the kind of deniable MI6-directed special operations work that E Squadron exists to perform. It is the world, even if the name on that particular file stays sealed. The political fallout was sharp. Britain's Foreign Secretary at the time, William Hague, was forced to confirm to a skeptical parliament that a British team had been sent into Libya and then withdrawn, choosing his words with enormous care to avoid ever quite saying who the armed men with the false passports really were. It was a masterclass in the art this entire world runs on, telling the literal truth while revealing nothing. A team had visited. There had been difficulties. The team had left, every word of it accurate, and not one of them an admission of what had actually walked into that desert. Around that confirmed core swirls a cloud of rumor, and an honest channel labels rumor as rumor. E Squadron and its increment predecessor have been linked, in reporting and in speculation, to the snatching of war crime suspects in the Balkans, to a hostage rescue attempt in the Sahara, and to darker tasks that no government will ever confirm, and that I will not present to you as fact. Treat all of that as the legend that grows around any unit, this hidden, interesting, but unproven. What is not legend is this. In June of 2021, a careless British defense data breach, a leaked spreadsheet of promotions, referenced E Squadron by name. A bureaucratic accident did what a decade of denials tried to prevent. It confirmed in the government's own paperwork that the unit is real. Here's the counter-narrative this channel keeps coming back to. Ask 100 military enthusiasts to name Britain's most secret unit, and nearly every one of them will say the SAS. They will be wrong. The SAS is famous. It has a museum, a published history, 100 memoirs, and a recruiting mystique the size of a mountain. The truly hidden British unit is the one that pulls the best men out of the SAS and hands them to the spies, the squadron whose work is designed to be denied, whose operations surface only when something goes wrong in a Libyan desert, and whose name escapes only by accident in a leaked file. Fame is the opposite of secrecy. The most secret unit is the one you have heard the least about, and that is precisely the point of E Squadron. The Americans have their own version of this trick, the moment when a Delta Force operator is loaned to the Central Intelligence Agency and stops, on paper, being a soldier. But the British turned the idea into a standing institution with its own letter and its own quiet home. Where the American crossing is usually temporary, a coat borrowed for a single operation, E Squadron is the coat made permanent, a fixed bridge between the Army's best men and the intelligence service that wants them. That is a difference in national character, written into the structure of two secret units. The Americans improvised the crossing. The British built it a house. Think about what that life cost the man inside it. An SAS trooper at least belongs to a regiment with a history and a brotherhood, even if the wider world never learns his name. The operator seconded into E Squadron gives up even that. He works undercover, travels under false names, and carries out the most sensitive tasks his country asks of anyone, knowing that if it goes wrong, his government may deny he was ever there. There is no medal for a mission that officially never happened. There is no regimental dinner for a war that was never declared. He trades the last shred of recognition for the purest form of service there is, the kind no one will ever know to thank him for. Now, the part I want the British and Commonwealth veterans and the serious students in the comments to argue about, because it cuts to something real. A military unit like Delta Force, for all its secrecy, ultimately answers to a Defense Department and a body of military law. A unit that works for the intelligence service answers to far less. So the question is this: is E Squadron the smartest tool Britain ever built, a way to send its finest soldiers where soldiers legally cannot go? Or is it a deliberate end run around accountability, elite violence placed one careful step beyond the reach of the people who are supposed to watch? Tell me which one you think it is and tell me why. And if that question stays with you, then the public version of this channel is only the surface. The official membership is where I put the material that does not survive the edit. The reported operations and the names that get cut before a video about a unit this hidden can be posted in the open. It is the part of the story I have to leave on the floor to keep this online at all. If you want what gets trimmed away, step up to official, and I will see you behind the line. The team in the Libyan desert went home, the passports went back in the safe, and the British government went back to pretending the squadron behind them does not quite exist. That is the strange genius of E Squadron. It is the unit you only ever see in the half second before someone slams the door. The men who are most successful precisely when you never learn they were there at all. Delta Force is the most famous secret in the American military. E Squadron is the secret the British have managed to keep even from the people who think they already know all the secrets.